or what, Ernie? Like before, I've never heard of that before.
Okay, so what was going on this conversation was basically about securing positions in the field. Um, Gone, I hate to say it, but I think gone are the days of where we could just slap cybersecurity training on a resume. The same with coding. Um, you can't really stick that on a resume now and be guaranteed a job. We got to work for it. As sad as that's going to be, we got to work for it. Um, so this one fellow came up and was discussing the idea of how to build credibility in the industry so that we can have that leg up on everybody else, because there's what, 20 of us in our cohort. I'm not sure how many in the West. um, we've got all these other cohorts behind us, all the ones ahead of us. How are we going to stand out amongst all of our graduates? Not to say that any one of us is any better or different than the other, but at the same time, we do need to stand out. And how do we do that? So this fellow had this framework, he called it, of these 4 C's. And what that came down to was capability, capacity, and consistency, all making a formula equal to credibility. So it kind of stuck with me. I threw together this little blog post, or actually, I had ChatGPT do it just for the purpose of filling in some blanks here. But it kind of resonated with me, and it was, I thought, a good idea. Capability, referring to technical skills and knowledge. Capacity, about your ability to apply skills effectively, handling the demands of the job. Consistency, tying everything together, demonstrating these qualities over time, building trust, and all of that then, therefore, equaling credibility in what we do and what we know. And so, how to come up with that, how to showcase all this was basically through a portfolio. Whether that's, whether we do that through a GitHub portfolio site or your own .com, a .ca, whatever it happens to be, having this portfolio of information that can showcase capability, capacity, and consistency, and therefore instilling some credibility on yourself. And therefore, when your resume hits the right hands and somebody looks at it and they open up your portfolio and they look, yeah, they've got all the right stuff, let's hire them, or take to the next step anyway. So I thought this was kind of interesting, kind of stuck with me, like I say, for some reason, and I thought it was good and a good starting point here for today. Um, so going on, with Git and GitHub, I just wanted to showcase a little bit about a GitHub portfolio and touch on the differences between GitHub and Git, because they're two sort of totally different things. Um, so for those that don't know, Git is well, let me just jump to my notes here. So Git is what's called a source control management tool. And yeah, we're talking source code really, in the programming world, but it doesn't have to just be code. So it can be suitable for any kind of projects and various types of content. Like I say, from source code to text files, just like the one here that you're looking at. So what Git is the sort of the back end engine. It controls versioning and all the information that's there. GitHub is like a front end to sort of put it together. But with Git, I can run a Git server locally inside my house here. A company can have their own Git server, and you can do all of this stuff within that. But GitHub is sort of a public presentation and facilitation system, useful in sharing that information sort of wide and far with lots of different people if you wanted to, or you can keep it private. So the companies use it. Here's Microsoft on their GitHub. Here's one of their security and research repositories, as they're called. They're sort of like a project, or you can think of it as a project. MSRC, Security and Research. Presentations was updated just 3 weeks ago. You can see in here they did something about secure boot talk slides. And we could go into that if we wanted to. And you can see all the different things that they've put together. Boot talk slides, here it is here under Black Hat USA. And we could go right into seeing what they've got. This is a PDF file. You can see up here the file name. and you can go into all their slides that they've put together on it. More from Microsoft. Microsoft Learning has 635 different repositories or projects on their system, and you could go through and you could find all kinds of stuff. First one on the list, well, here, Security Operations Analyst. Oh, that's in Spanish, maybe? BR Brazilian. Not sure if that's the same
It looks
as
like Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah,
Oh,
It's
okay.
like
Okay.
Portuguese, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Portuguese.
But there's going to be English in here. Identity and Access Administrator. There we go. English for people like me that know English, and that's it. So again, Microsoft Learning's on here, Microsoft's on here, and it's not just programming related. Like I say, there's all these documents, Azure Administrator files. All of that's there. All of it's available, freely accessible to look at and copy and share and do what else with if you so desire. Other companies, Security Onion, might have heard that in some of the lessons. So they're on there. They might have some code here for their system, and then all the documentation, stuff like that. More from Microsoft. Here's a Cybersecurity 101 course. You could go into Cybersecurity for Beginners. It shows you their curriculum, has some videos embedded in it, modules overviews. They're talking the CIA triad and so on. And you'd be able to click into each of these.
Hurry, I do have a question here. Sorry to interrupt
No
you.
problem.
So like, how do you find that? How do you find the page? Just search in GitHub, or
Yeah, you
let's say
can
that if I, yeah.
you can really just search Google.
Okay.
And then, do a GitHub if you wanted, Microsoft Cybersecurity, for instance.
Got it.
And here the first one that's coming up is out of the one we were just looking at with their 101 course. Here's another one, Microsoft Learning, Cybersecurity Architect. So it's just a matter of Googling, and you don't have to use GitHub
Okay.
as a keyword in there. You can just see what comes up. And no doubt you will come across GitHub stuff at some point or another.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So again, this is Microsoft Security 101 course that's on GitHub. And sorry, let me just close some of these before I lose track of where we are. There's our Microsoft one again. Somebody on here has this awesome SOC program they're talking about. It seems to be popular. It's got 1,200 stars, and it's been forked, and we'll get into that term a little bit later. 198 times. Collection of sources of documentation, field best practices to run and build a SOC, including CSIRT. So there's always lots of useful information in there. And I'm really just showing this because during your time, you're going to see Git and GitHub stuff come up. If anybody's familiar with Simply Cyber, if not, you should probably tune into this guy on YouTube. His GitHub channel here is fairly quiet, but follow him on YouTube anyway. Lots of good stuff there from a GRC's perspective. But if you remember, a few days ago, I posted on our Discord server one of his YouTube videos about this little GRC assist. It's kind of a news aggregator Python script, and it pulls together different news sources from this one site. Very, very handy, I thought.
Yeah.
So I kind of jumped on that. And what you can do is, with Git and GitHub, is you can now, or not necessarily now, but the purpose of it is bringing the collaboration together. So what I did here was what's called forking. So I came into his site, I saw his code, I thought, hey, this is kind of great, tested it out. So I cloned his code. I can go to this code button, and I can clone his code right here. I can hit copy, and then on my computer, I just go git space clone space and then that URL. And it pulls down a copy of all his code to my computer. And then I can work on it, I can run it, I can modify it, I can do whatever. And alternatively, I can make my own copy of it. And this is where this is what GitHub or Git does. Sorry, not GitHub, but Git is it creates these copies of the code or the material all to myself, or all to all the other individual people that want to use it. And what can happen afterwards is when you're done or when you're in progress or whatever stage, you can actually say to the original owner, here's some changes that I've made. You might like these. Would you like to have them? And you would create what's called a pull request. We're not going to get into all those details today. I might create a little bit of a project that'll sort of walk us through and show how to do that. But just as an example, like I'm saying, this guy's code here for his news aggregator, I did what was called forking. So if we go into forks, existing forks, how did I get to that? I don't have any forks there. GRC forks, we'll go through it here. So you can see here, this is my account, EJ8899. I've created a fork of his code. I'm running in a test account here, so it didn't work the first time. But I've created a version of his code, and if I click through to it, you'll see it here. So I've taken his documentation and I've expanded on it, shown the prerequisites that are needed, how to set up your API key, updating the keywords file, and I've updated the code as well with quite a few different additions in here. You wouldn't be able to see what they are necessarily unless you did a close compare, but they're in there. And so what I could do, again, this isn't my account that I'm showing you this on, but I can create a pull request with Jerry from Simply Cyber and say, hey, I really liked your code. Here's some changes though that I made. You might like them. And he might turn around and look at those and say, yeah, this is great. And he accepts that pull request, and then it would merge everything together. And so that's where the beauty of Git is it manages all this source, this versioning and source control through everything that's going on. However, that's not why we're here. We're here to basically build a portfolio site today, and it'll be on GitHub. And really, if you wanted to, somebody could come along and say, hey, I like your portfolio. Here's some changes though, because they might want to fork it, make some changes and send it back to you. Probably not going to, but they might. But that's an option. And just because GitHub is such a popular tech related site, it's kind of handy. I use it obviously all the time for development purposes and pushing my code to it. But at the same time, I've been building out the cybersecurity section that I've got going on here. So if you come into my cyber section, projects and jobs completed. So I've got stuff from Lighthouse Labs in here, all of the some of my other work that I've done, freelance work, into the Lighthouse Labs projects. So they're all listed here. And then they link out to my Google Docs on all that stuff. Some additional stuff that we've done in Lighthouse. So I go back. Some training documents that I've created. I've just been saving them in here. Some of you might have seen these. I just create these little infographics that get emailed out with my clients. I rebrand them for their company, send them out. So I put all that kind of stuff in here. What else have we got on the go? Stuff about the home lab that we've been doing a little bit on here and there. And so, yeah, just a little bit of stuff like that. So that's what I've been using it for. Fairly simple stuff. Let me just go back to
But it's good. It's good because it's a place that's free. Like, you don't have to pay for hosting.
Correct.
And you can showcase your stuff, and it pulls it all into one place. And I've seen a lot of companies now that are adding like a GitHub link, like in LinkedIn, they've got, like big companies, like you just said, Microsoft. So you can find their information in different places, but it all kind of pulls together. And the one thing I've learned is if I don't know how to do something, I can go find it like code-wise, if I want to build something, even games, or a language that I want to learn how to use. I love going in there and searching and just finding different things. And then you can take it and reverse engineer it and learn.
Yes.
and see things in action as opposed to just like reading about it, and you can actually get your hands dirty in code.
Exactly.
So it could be anything as easy as HTML or CSS or, like you said, Python. So
Yeah.
it's really handy that way. The only thing I have a problem with is I'm still learning after how many years, the interface isn't as intuitive as what most people are probably used to. Do you know what I mean? Like the user interface. I mean, you have to learn all of the things, their terminology, and the things like even how to just post a website or just publish your stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of steps to it. So, and if you forget one, you're like, why doesn't it work? Then I just find YouTube actually has a lot of how-tos and how to do certain things. So if you don't know something, I just go search for it on YouTube, and then I just use that to go in and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I actually I did a it was more of a testing, one of those skill sort of things in LinkedIn on using GitHub, and I'm like, okay, I use GitHub all the time. I should be able to pass this no problem. I went in and yeah, I failed it the first time around. I'm like, geez, there's a lot more to learn here than I realized than just creating some branches and forks and pushing and pulling different things. But yeah, I don't want to confuse anybody today with getting into those more advanced topics. But we'll basically build a very simple portfolio, and then we can sort of go from there in the future if we want to. So everybody all good with that so far?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So first task is basically signing up for GitHub. So we would basically just go to github.com. I'm already signed in here just as a test account. So if you were to go to, let me just sign out. If you go here, click sign up, and we're just on github.com. If you haven't signed up already, you'll get a screen like this. Enter your email and continue. It'll ask you a few other questions, so I'll let everybody do that if they're wanting to work on it as we go. Otherwise, I'm just going to sign back in here.
I'm signed in and I'm going to try and follow along with you.
Okay, sure. So I'm just signing in. Add a passkey. You can do that later if you're getting that message or unless you've already done it. So then for anybody who's just starting out fresh, you should see a screen just like this. It'll be your home dashboard. Let me start writing code. If you wanted to, you can start a new repository or project, if you will, but get used to the term repo for short or repository. You could name them and they're public or private, obviously depending on what you want or need. So what we want to focus on today, though, is introducing yourself with a profile README. I assume, you see this screen? Unless you've already been...
Yeah.
Okay. So introduce yourself with a profile README. So this is going to be your portfolio. So all we need to do is hit create. And you're going to get a screen that looks somewhat similar to this. It's basically a code editor. We've got some numbers down the side. We've got some emojis in here and a few little basics filled in. These signs down here in line 9 and line 12 are for comments. So 9 starts a comment, 12 ends it with those symbols. So you could really just fill this all out, or you can leave it as is. Fun fact, I like to travel and eat weird food. Pronouns, I don't do that. How to reach me. Yeah, you can fill it in, and you can do what then is called committing your changes. So this is kind of some of the technical aspects of what we got to get into here with dealing with GitHub and Git is committing changes. So instead of just saving, which would be nice and simple, we have to commit these changes, and now we need to put in a commit message. So we can leave it with this default of create README, and we could commit the changes and then it's saved, or we can type in what we've done. So we've updated fun fact and updated or added contact email, and then we can commit the changes, and you saw it save. So now here is your portfolio, if you will, all updated. Who you are, it's already filled that in. We didn't fill in interests and currently learning and collaboration, but we do have our email in there now, and our fun fact is all added. So now if you sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Can you go back and edit that later? I'm just wondering if I
Yes.
should hit commit changes.
Yeah, you can edit it anytime. And so you'll see this little pencil here over on the right-hand side of this window. You can go back in there and edit it anytime.
Okay, perfect.
So if we go back to our main account, this is your portfolio that we just basically made. Now, building a portfolio on GitHub isn't necessarily the prettiest thing. We can get you to something that works and looks a little nicer, but you're still going to have things like this, your avatar. So you can go in here and upload an image. You would just edit that, upload something. We'll use this AI image. Oh, we only support GIF or PNG.
Hey, Ernie.
Yes.
Ernie, see, I do have a question here. So, like, once you did mention that, some people use this AI to create a picture. So I did not understand why would anybody just create a picture? They can just upload their picture, right? Like there was a conversation going on, but what would be the reason, people doing that one?
So there's some AI going on out there that basically says, we can take any image of you. So if you're walking around wearing a old T-shirt and ripped jeans, but you've got a business job coming up, and you want to be, looking more professional in a suit and tie and stuff, AI will sort of modify that and do it. So that one post that I showed, was basically that. Somebody just uploading a picture and saying, hey, make it look professional. And then all of a sudden, I didn't show, but there was a list of, hundreds of people that had the same clothes, the same hairstyle, and there was just subtle changes in the facial features to show the different people. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, I would avoid doing stuff like that. You might be able to upload your own image and make it do some tweaks, but I'd be careful about using it for a whole makeover.
Thank you.
No problem. So back into GitHub here, we can update a few things. Put your name in here. If you want to have a public email going on, this is a bit more about me. If you've got a full website going on, you could type that in. And we can update our profile just to make it a little bit nicer. Go to your personal profile and just start cleaning things up a little bit. So if we go back to mine.
I do have a question here. Sorry to interrupt
No
you.
worries.
So when you're using your own domain, like your own website, right?
Mhm.
You did mention that you were gonna refer, So do you have somebody? I know that GoDaddy is one of the thing, but is there like any other domain seller, who does this thing, like selling a name?
Oh yeah. There's lots of places. Kat, are you still with us? I'm not sure if you did anything more on your
I'm here.
document, but
I didn't do any more, but I
Okay.
definitely will put something together. And I have like a lot of places where I've actually used them for over 10, 15 years. My one domain for my personal site I've had for 22 years. But I can put it together for you, Vipul. And Ed was asking me too. But I can put a document together, and I just gave like best practices on how to pick a domain and where to go, because you really want to be careful. You're not owning the domain, you actually are just renting it. So when you purchase that domain, you have to make sure that you're maintaining it. That's a whole other thing. But if you're
sure.
interested, I'll put you down. And I'll
Sure.
just put
Yeah.
something together if that's okay.
Oh, sure, sure, Kat. Yeah, I would appreciate it. And it's like, and thank you, Anil. Like, we don't have to discuss today, but I had this question and I just asked it. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna speak with Kat. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, like I just did a Google search for domain registrars. GoDaddy is just I've used them for many years, and that's just where I stick with, just because everything is there instead of me having. I do a lot of buying and selling of .com, so instead of me
Yeah.
having some here and some there and all over the place, it's just GoDaddy, and they do my auctioning and everything for all that stuff. So, here's domain.
That's good to know. That's good to know. I've also used that domain.com
Mm-hmm.
just recently because I think they're kind of newer. Maybe they've been around, see, the problem is a lot of these places get bought up by bigger organizations. So sometimes like you may start with one and then they get bought by somebody else. So
Yeah.
you just have to be careful that you don't lose your domain. Like that's the main thing. Because I've had one or two people that's happened to,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it's like, forget it. That's your brand, that's your identity, that's your name. You want to make sure that you pick something. But okay, I'm sorry, we're moving to another
Oh,
topic.
yeah.
No
Sign
worries.
me up for that
Then,
though, Kat, when you get to it. I set mine up on Weebly many, many years ago, and I want to
Yeah,
migrate it off of that. And I tried before and I got really confused. So
Mm.
another time
yeah,
I'd love
I
to hear from you.
for sure.
Well,
I will
and
definitely do that.
for anybody who can make it, as long as my plans don't change next weekend, we might be able to touch on that in a little bit more in depth too. Or I might briefly touch on it at the end of today here too, depending on our time. But we'll get into
and
some of that too. So, but there's
and
lots
then
of examples here for where you can get a .com or similar from. So
sure, and this is a very quick question regarding this topic. So like when I was looking and reading a bit about, so I understood that buying domain is one thing and maintaining it is the other thing. It is just that you have to create again your own web pages and those stuff, right? I mean just to understand, that's how the things work. First you buy a domain and then you have to set up things where it actually has some content in it. Isn't
yes,
it?
That's right.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, if we got a couple minutes at the end of this, I'll just show you what I'm sort of hoping to do for next weekend, and if everybody has time and wants to join in and have a look, then that'll be good. But yeah, there's lots of spots. So yeah, domains, and then we can get into topics too of trademark infringement. So you got to be careful with what you're doing for domains. I've been sued a couple of times. Probably one of the biggest one was $250,000 US for one that I had registered, and stuff like that. So you got to be a little bit careful. Do some research and find out what works. So, but lots of options. So if we go back here to our GitHub page, where was I now? I'm just going to close sort of a few more of these. Here's our profile that we've started. This was the default stuff that GitHub created for us. It's going to tell you about popular repositories. Like I said, we sort of touched on the editing of the profile. You can fill in some blanks, more about me, put a picture up, how people are going to get a hold of you, a different website if you've got one, LinkedIn, where's mine here. So I've got like a little bit of everything going on, where I'm from, my main website, Twitter or X, LinkedIn, YouTube, stuff like that. So you can fill in a few blanks, a little bit about me, what I'm doing. So you can start filling in a little bit of that. But again, GitHub isn't built for making a portfolio site or really a website all on its own. But we can sort of cheat and come up with some stuff. And so that will lead me into, if you were to look up my portfolio site here on GitHub, so github.com/EJ8899. And then if we go to repositories, and we scroll down and we find this one called portfolio template. And we'd click back into there. I threw this together with some Lighthouse information. I copy and pasted most of our topics into ChatGPT, and I said, hey, create me like a little bit of a layout sort of summarize some of our skills. So I've got that in here. Create a bit of an introduction page, following, again, what we learned at Lighthouse and Lighthouse themselves. So there's some talk in there. This is all ChatGPT generated, so don't just copy paste and use it, for yourself. Reword it, make it human. But the basics are all sort of in here. Again, the skills are all in here about what we've done with Lighthouse. Certifications, obviously you got to make that your own. Whether you're working on Security Plus, which everybody says you should. So I've got that in there. And then obviously Lighthouse 2024. Some of our projects, I just listed those in here. Experience, I put a bit of a blurb about Lighthouse in here. I linked out to Lighthouse and our dates for our particular cohort. Completed over 600 hours of hands-on training, including education. You could fill that sort of stuff out. If you're writing a blog somewhere, or you can even create your blog on GitHub, you can put that into here. Public speaking, if you end up saving a copy of your presentation there coming up in a couple of weeks and you stick it up on YouTube or something, you can link out to that. Get some testimonials from the instructors or peers, put those on here. And then, of course, make sure people have a way to contact you, email, LinkedIn, whatever it is. You could have a little counter on there if you wanted to. You can dress things up with some different buttons. These are just sort of slapped in here to show you different styles that you can work with. But what we want to do is steal this template, and to make it the easiest sort of way to do that is we're just going to go in and edit the file. And I can't, sorry. I've forgotten how to do this already. Click on the file. That's where I'm going wrong. Click on the file, because right now we're looking at the README, which is this portfolio site. So if we go up to the file listings, we click into README, and what we can do is on the top right, we can look at the raw code for that thing, which is here. And we could copy and paste that if we wanted to, or we could just use the shortcut icons here. This one in the middle, copy raw file, click. And if we go back to our own portfolio page here, and we go back to edit the current README, we'll click that little pencil, and we can just copy all and then paste, and it'll overwrite everything. Now you're going to get you'll get a bunch of stuff pasted in there. Commit changes, commit message, update, or we'll just say change, and you can put whatever you want in here. Change to new portfolio design. We want to commit directly to the main branch. Well, sometime in the future we'll talk about branches and doing all that kind of stuff, but that's more than what we want to get into here. So commit directly to the main branch. We'll commit our changes, and it's done. And here's the new version of the file. The image is broken because you'll need to upload your own image. And then you can go into editing again, and that's where you could change. Once you uploaded an image, you can get into the code here, and it's a matter of just following with the code to basically learn about it. It's what's called Markdown. So these number signs, these are a heading. We've got things like this with the exclamation mark. This signals an image, and then this is the alternative text that goes in there. So, we could do get to, for example, and maybe you've uploaded and it says get to's photo.png or JPEG, whatever it is. We can come down here. These ones with the square brackets are links. And note there's no exclamation mark, so it's not an image, it's just a text word that says email. So you could say email me if you wanted to, and then mail to. we leave that part in and then just put your email address in there. So maybe it's getyou@gmail.com. Again, for example, update your LinkedIn if you want to have LinkedIn on there. Change your address. And if you've got an extra website, or you could just take that right out, just like so. Introduction, the double hashtags, number signs, that's for a different style of heading. And we'll touch on that as well. That's for basically the single hashtag is heading 1, the double is heading 2, and then there's a third for heading 3. So I've just used the double heading just to make it a little smaller, but it's still a heading. Introduction, you could update all this. Our 3 dashes here, that's a horizontal line that it translates into. Another heading here, heading number 2 for skills, heading number 3 with our 3 hashtag symbols, network security. The dashes signify unordered lists, so you'll get the bullet points. And you can go through if you don't want something in here, maybe you're not wanting to reference Python programming at all, you can delete that out. Maybe you have you want nothing to do with GRC, take that out. You know, whatever you want to do. Projects, again, you'll see I've got the square brackets. Project 1, the stolen Szechuan sauce inside square brackets. So that's what's going to show up on screen when we hit commit changes. That's how it'll read to everybody. And then inside the round brackets is the link to your files on GitHub or anywhere else that you have them. So that's an option there. I've listed the other projects. So maybe you didn't like Szechuan sauce for a project, or you weren't happy with it. Delete that out, and then you can just renumber if you wanted to. You don't even have to have the numbers in there. Just project, or just take the word project out. It's all up to you guys how you want to modify and adjust this stuff. Moving down, we've got an experience section. Fill in your details there. Education, add to whatever you've done in the past. Maybe you don't have any blog or writing, just delete all that stuff. Public speaking, maybe you don't have any of that either and you want to take that out. Testimonials, again, this is all up to everybody who's working on this, how you want to do it. Leave them in, take them out. Make sure they're legitimate. You could always have ChatGPT write some stuff, I suppose. But if anybody goes digging, then they might say, "Okay, what's going on here?"
That's been the thought in my head since you started this page, is like the copying and pasting. I'm like, how is this not plagiarism?
Well, it's, like I say, make it your own, because I just plugged into ChatGPT for the bulk of this. So, so make things your own.
Yeah. Also, you can play around with fonts here, right?
No, you can't.
Okay, thanks.
We can do bold, underlines, italics, stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, we're limited to what GitHub is going to present for us.
What language is that, Ernie? That's not HTML. What is that?
No, this is what's called Markdown. So I'll show you I'll jump to that here in a second. I was just going to get through the rest of this, and then show you. So down below this, we're going to start getting into a little bit more confusing looking stuff. The asterisks here, that denotes, I think that was bold or italicized. I have to look and see. Again, this one's an image. We got our little exclamation mark, but it goes to a third-party website and has a whole bunch of code in here. This is actually the little counter that you'll see. If I jump to mine, see this little profile views counter? This code here, you're more than welcome to use it, and then you can just come in here in the spot that says replace with your GitHub username. You can put your username in there, get you, for example, or you can actually type whatever you want, as long as keep it to just plain text, and it'll generate a view counter based on that code that you've got in there. %20 is code word for a space. So label equals my profile views with a colon. So if I jump over to that, my profile views, I don't have the colon in there on mine, but that's what that's doing. So you can remove it, you can leave it, you can play with it and experiment if you want. It's all up to you guys. And then I've just got down below just some buttons. Again, we're getting into some more confusing looking stuff, but it's an image with this exclamation mark and then the text word for Python in there, and it's just going to generate an image from this one website that lets us use these little badges. Python, Bash, PowerShell, stuff like that. Again, totally option if you want to use them, or you could comment them out or just delete them and play with that stuff all later. So we'll just delete them for now. So if I hit commit changes, and I'll just leave the generic commit message in there, commit the main screen. So it's updated some stuff. You'll see I'm picking on Git here with just plugging your name into a few spots. But you'll see some of the stuff is updated. All those buttons at the end have changed. I've just typed a bunch of gibberish in for that view counter, so it's going to start over at number 1 because it doesn't know that that one exists yet. If I refresh the page, it will go to number 2. Right there.
Hey, Andy, I have a question regarding the profile views. So in that username, you don't have to give the actual username. You can just give anything, and still the code is going to work.
Yeah, anything you want. Now, if you used something that already exists, it's going to pull that number in. So if you had just, I don't even know where to start, just sort of guessing. Let's just put in ABC, commit changes.
Okay.
Because if somebody else somewhere around the world used ABC, and they have.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it.
So you might want to preface it with your username and then a dash, and say, hey, my main portfolio. And you might want to have a different counter on different pages that you use. Like here's my main portfolio page. And so I've got 1,608 views on that one right now. But if I go into the cyber related section, you'll see a different count.
Okay.
488. So I've just named it something different to distinguish between the two pages.
Got it, Andy. Yeah, thank you.
So to Kat's message or comment there, what language is being used? That is Markdown. And Markdown was a language, if we want to call it a language, that was developed back 2004, I believe. Yeah, right here, 2004. And it's just a very simple, sort of quick way to type text and create some basic markups or markdowns, if you will, of what you want to do. So we've got our single £sign for a heading 1, double for a heading 2, triple for a number 3 heading. And here's the examples of how they render H1, H2, H3. Emphasis, we've got italics inside the asterisks, or you can do an underline. Double asterisks for bold. Squigglies there for the strike throughs, and a greater than sign for block quotes. And then here's how they all render. Lists, so we can go with dashes, and if we put a couple of spaces in, you'll get a sub item. And again, here's how they render as unordered lists. Ordered lists with numbering, you actually just have to type the numbers in, and it almost seems kind of pointless, but it does exactly what your numbering does, so it doesn't really build the list itself. Links, again, how I showed you there in the code, inside a square bracket is the text we want to see on the screen. So in here we see GitHub, and in the round brackets is the actual URL that it goes to, the website. So if we were to click on this, it'll just go right to GitHub, just like so. Just coming back, a few other more advanced things. We can do tables, and it's just a matter of using the pipe symbol, typing in your header, another pipe, your next header in your column, close it with a pipe. You can do a separator for your heading, and then you can just start doing your rows and columns inside of each pipe here, and then it will render in a somewhat nicely displayed table, just like so. What's next? So if we've gone ahead and created our portfolio here, let's say you've added an image, you want to have your emails, website, LinkedIn, whatever on there, and now you want to start working on some projects. If you were to look back at my original code here, let me just find it here, back to my repositories, portfolio template. I've put in a couple of other templates here as well. So if you wanted to start writing blog posts, you know, here's some example code. So you could go in, copy that raw file, paste it into your GitHub, create a new file in GitHub for a blog post, perhaps. If you want to use it for projects, here's a little project template that I created for you. This is a table of contents that it will automatically link to your different headings down here. So if we wanted to click on use cases, it'll take us right to there. And if we look at the code for that, here's your table of contents with a list structure with the dashes, and here's the square brackets showing the text. And for the link, we just preface the heading with a $, and it will jump to the right section down below. But again, you can use those for building out projects later on if you so desired. Just coming back to the one we've been playing with here. Go back into our edit tool. And again, whatever you want to add, delete, modify, you're more than welcome to play with that. Again, this is just a template that I threw together that had a bunch of Lighthouse related material in it, and I thought was kind of suitable, or a good starting point anyway to get everybody sort of started and off the ground, creating a basic portfolio site. And again, very, very basic, simple sort of site to play with on GitHub. What it would come down to once you're all done, at the end of the day, your website URL for your new portfolio is your github.com/ whatever your username is, and that'll take you to your finished portfolio. Some of the dress up stuff that I do on mine with these graphics here, I do these in Canva and just export them and then upload them into GitHub and link them through the images that I showed you. Same idea there. Here's just a table with some information of some of my projects that I've done. And if we use those buttons that I showed you as well that I've included, you can modify those and have them click out to different spots on your GitHub or wherever you want. You can link directly to Google Documents or other websites, stuff like that.
I have a quick question.
For sure.
What do you guys think collectively are the good projects to put up as your example? Because we're all starting with cybersecurity and we don't really have a whole lot to show, right? But I think like some of the harder weeks, like the later weeks, or are there topics that you think are more important or relevant than other ones?
One that comes to mind is, I think, P8 or P9, where we had to do the policy and the incident response plan and the slideshow. It's all together.
Yeah.
Maybe that one, because it showcases all different facets.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I already forgot about that one.
So now keep in mind though, each of our weeks more or less was a different course within Lighthouse. So we've got a lot of good learning in each of those projects.
So would you include all of them? Do you think that's too much or?
I don't think it's necessarily too much, but you might want to scroll some of them off. You know, maybe you've got your networking project in there, whatever we did. I don't even remember what it was. Just rebuild the topology, for instance, maybe.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
okay.
you know, maybe you're building a home lab and you want to emphasize on that instead. So instead of keeping the Lighthouse networking project on there, just dump that one
Yeah,
off and go to something a little bit more elaborate.
else.
You know,
Okay.
maybe you've got some legitimate work experience and you want to showcase that instead. Um, I had, if I go back to my cyber one here, training documents. I kind of look at these as just, you know, these are something, you know, I'll sit down and I'll do, you know, spend 15 or 20 minutes on, just throw together the graphics and some text. And they're simple as far as that goes. And I'm like, well, do they really count as something I can showcase or should showcase? But on the other hand, it's like, well, companies want this stuff. Like when they don't send this stuff out, then people aren't being educated. So I have included that on some of my stuff. Will it eventually scroll off? Probably, but it's there for now anyway. You know, to me, this is just simple. Like I say, you know, 15, 20 minutes and I'm done one of these. But
But you make a good point. You make a good point right there that your portfolio should be evolving. It's never done. Like it's you just what you build today is going to completely change in 3 months, 6 months, a year. Not just with projects, but just you're going to go back and go, oh, I can do something better than this, or I
yeah,
can
yeah,
add this or take this down, or
yeah. And maybe something simple too is ideal to have in it, because you know how many companies are we going to start out with, and all of a sudden they're gonna sit us down and say, okay, we need you to write some Python code to do X, Y, and Z automation for dealing with our log files. No, you're probably going to sit down and maybe you're going to do something like this and push out some education material. So how to identify a phishing email. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I know what I've gotten into with some freelancing work, but you know, if I have a company that says, yeah, we want to hire you, I'm probably not going to be diving into a code base right off the hop, or dealing with a full administrative system and sending anti-phishing campaigns out. I'm probably going to be doing something a little bit more, what I'll call menial, but it's still important. You know, it's still security-minded growth or learning and educating and everything else. So that's my perspective anyway on it. So so how's everybody doing that was sort of following along? Have I lost anybody with anything, or
I definitely wasn't able to keep up following along, but that's okay. It was good to get an idea of what to do, and I can refer back to your GitHub to actually, try and copy stuff over and
for sure?
fiddle around with it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's just go into it, repositories, find this one portfolio template.
Okay.
Make sure you star it up here in the top right. You don't have to, but um, up here in the file list is where you want to click on. Otherwise, you'll end up, okay, where do I get the code from again? Just like I was doing. Click on the actual file, and README is sort of your front and center file that initially loads. If you create other projects, or repositories as they're called, a README file is what's displayed sort of front and center to everybody. So that's why we're working on a README.md file. And so once you've clicked into that on this sample portfolio one here, you can go to raw and you could copy and paste it just like so, highlight everything, copy, paste, or you can just click the little copy raw file and then paste that back into your own. So if we go back to the start of this one, click the edit pencil, I'm just highlighting everything, control Ving to paste it back in, commit changes, and you're done.
Sweet.
and then go back in
Where
and edit, tweak it.
mhm. Where do you go to find, I guess, things to upgrade your GitHub, like cool buttons or I don't know, a different way to display something, whatever you do to like make yours stand out a little bit?
So that's just a matter of if you're stumbling around through GitHub, or Googling, show me some examples. Interesting GitHub portfolios, a list of developer portfolios for your inspiration.
Oh,
Um, and here's lists
my
of them.
God.
Just,
That's the yellow book.
yeah, just clicking on one, doesn't work. Try this one, that's going somewhere totally different. So your results may vary here. We're not, maybe these are just full, okay, these aren't GitHub portfolios. That's why.
I find it's hard to search in GitHub for things,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if you use Google and you, like Ernie said, you definitely can find some. I found this writer, she actually wrote this article. I've just put it in the chat, and she shows you just basically how to do like a CV. Well, a CV is different than a resume, I guess, which I'm also learning now that some people may want a CV, some people may want a resume. A resume is like I think just a more shorter version, but the CV is also a European term, and it's like a full on you put everything in there. But this lady, she's a writer, and she does code too. I can't remember what exactly she writes. There's some questionable stuff she writes about, so don't look at that. But just that article alone, she actually shows you similar stuff that Ernie showed you, and how to put your own images, and it's just kind of basic, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
I found her writing to be really good step by step. But a lot of times when I go to GitHub, I just get so overwhelmed because I don't know. It's more, I think it is more of a developer interface with all those, even the cogs and the things that they have. Nothing is obvious, I would say.
It,
But if you do have a question, just go Google it. Even if you think it's like really small, someone did a video somewhere.
yeah.
And just so you know, Gisu, I actually had to watch a video, and every time they did one step, I had to stop it, go into GitHub, do it, then go back, and I had to watch the video like 2 times in order to complete, because sometimes people go so fast because they're just doing a video, right? They're trying to teach you. And but I do find that there is some good stuff out there. But if I find any, if I can remember any of the design ones, because you can pretty much go, like Ernie said, find somebody's design that you like,
Mm-hmm.
and just copy the files and you just tweak it and make it your own, right? Color may change. Something to really think about too, like if you have a design background, you might know more what colors go together. But even like links and what colors links should be in the background, something like Color Picker, or on the W3C site, they actually have an HTML color picker where you can go find the hexadecimal and the RGB, and then tailor it more to your own colors. It's simple code. Some of it's um, actually you can't use that in the Markdown, but I found a way to build it in HTML
Mm-hmm.
through Visual Code, which is a whole other. Did you know that, Ernie, that you can go into Visual Code and you can like build it, and then there's like this extension things you can download. People make things in VS Code where you just download the extension and you can actually um, build it in HTML, cascading style sheets, and then really change it, but just make it a
Yeah.
static page,
Yeah.
nothing too fancy. And then you have more control over the design, and then you can just upload everything. And that's my word, not GitHub's, but just put it up on GitHub. And then another thing too is you can even do it online. You don't need to download Visual Code, which I was like blown away with. But
Oh,
again, that's a whole other class. But if you guys want that video, I can send it to you too. And that's kind of
yeah.
how I did mine. And it's a couple more steps, but then you're in visual code, so it's like a WYSIWYG. It's like what you see is what you get kind of thing, right? You do the HTML and you can put tags in and stuff, and then just transfer it all to GitHub automatically through VS Code. So, but
Yeah.
this is good because I think if you can, any one of us, if you can get a GitHub page, just a basic page, you are probably further ahead than most cybersecurity people because I think it's more developers, designers, and more developers. I know some really awesome web designers who don't even have, they're like, can you explain to me what GitHub and Git is? And I'm like, okay. Do you have like a month? And they have these beautiful portfolios with their website, but they feel like they're missing something because people want to know, are you on GitHub? So that, I guess, is my point, is that if you can even just do a basic page like this, which doesn't look like a basic page, like I'm impressed that it can do this much. So if you could even just do something like this, then you are further ahead than most people. When you're talking, going back to that compatibility or the initial thing that Ernie was talking about, as far as showing what you can do, then I think you're better to do it.
Yeah, and this is sort of where I was sort of going to wrap this up in is GitHub is very limited. We're limited to markup. We're limited to sort of pulling in a few different styles of buttons like this we can do, but overall we're very, very limited. So what you could do next, though, is if you wanted to be a developer, let's say, then you can start building your own portfolio from scratch. So I just refresh mine here. You know, I got animations going on. This has got, the only thing this has to do with GitHub is my code for all of this is on GitHub. This is self-hosted elsewhere. So this is my portfolio. You know, I've got things scrolling and overlapping and things animating, more things animating, stuff about my skills, languages that I use, more animations. So I've started putting in my cybersecurity projects in here, different applications, scrollers, but this is all custom built from a blank page, and JavaScript and Python's in here, PHP's involved in
You did
here.
all of this in GitHub?
No, this is not. No, the only
Okay.
thing that
I,
ties to GitHub here is my code is sitting
right,
on
right.
GitHub.
Okay, oh, okay,
But
I
this
see, I see.
is,
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
this is
yes,
all
okay,
self-hosted. I got this little mouse
okay.
pointer follow thing around.
No, that's beautiful.
You know, and it just goes on. My little resume section that scrolls in. All of my certifications, not all of them, but some of them are in here. You know, and it just goes on and on. A contact me form, you can't have that in GitHub. Um, um, I've got a chat bot that I've built so I can talk to the thing. Uh, feedback
That is
forms. I've
crazy that
got,
you have all that.
but this is
It's so good. It's so
and
good.
this so this is we're going from one extreme to another. Um, we've got this, you know, basic stuff on GitHub in Markdown. You know, like I say, we're limited there. We've got the extreme on the other end where you've got custom coding, everything's custom built from scratch, things going on here. And then we got one more sort of option, and that's where I was going to sort of, or hopefully talk about next week, is no code solutions. So there's lots of different places you can go and build a website without having to know HTML and CSS and
Yeah.
this and that. So I used Google Sites. Google has a free service for building websites. I threw one together there yesterday. So 2 or 3 hours later, I had this thrown together. This is Google. There's no JavaScript. There's no HTML, no CSS, nothing like that involved in this. But I've got a menu bar up here, about me section, blogs that I've started throwing together. That was the little.
I mean, that's what you're showcasing is how easy it is.
Yes.
So I think what we do is don't get overwhelmed, because that's the one thing I think that I would find with clients is they keep looking.
Yes.
It's at a certain point you got to stop looking. You just got to commit, make a decision. but start from square one. Like, get your LinkedIn, then get your GitHub. Make sure your resume's done, and I promise you, if you do this in order, like that's exactly. I mean, if you start looking at all this stuff, you're just going to be like, oh man, I'm never going to do that. And then I think give yourself, like, say, okay, in 6 months, this is where I want to be. I want to have my own website.
Yeah.
And so basically, when you buy your domain name, you're just redirecting it. You're just pointing it to wherever you want to point it to, like a Google site, like whatever. I mean, you could
Exactly.
even do. So the thing I think to just remember is, don't get overwhelmed. Start with the smaller pieces first, and then build from that. And so I that's what I'm going to do. I mean, and I've already built websites for myself, but the problem is everything changes. You constantly have to keep on top of it. And I'm always doing stuff for other people, other clients, and so I never had time to work on my own stuff. And this is really like, it's forcing me to do it now. But I mean, I have had clients that are like, I'd say, go find 3 sites that you really like one that you like, one that you love, and one that you're just crazy about. And they would come back, and then a week later they'd be like, wait, I found another one.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
nope, you got to stop. You just have to stop looking. I call it looky-loo-itis.
Scope creep. Scope creep.
Yeah, that's right. And then you can't decide, and you're like, who am I? So just pick out, like, what's my favorite color?
That,
Start with that,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
just kind of go from there and build yourself a little sitemap. Like, what, look at Ernie. He's got home, about, portfolio, resume. What
Yeah.
do you see at the top? There's a standard for every. We're not inventing the wheel here. You just got to go with whatever the standard is, and then just kind of slowly think about what you want to put on there.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't start with a website. I would start with GitHub, LinkedIn.
And yeah, and where I would not necessarily say different, but with the GitHub one, I would keep it relatively simple. You don't have to get too carried away. Just it's almost like more or less an about you and some of the stuff you've done. Obviously, like I say, the full-on website, for me, my portfolio here is not just a portfolio of stuff I've done, but it's also the portfolio itself is kind of a showcase, like, slide in little forms, my chatbot engine here that I wrote, to build things out. It's got like a little gaming system built into it. So all of the components of my particular portfolio here represent some of my skills. But in cybersecurity, we're a little bit different with that. So we want to talk about some of those skills in a different way, and that's through our reports. A couple weeks ago there, I did that little warm cookie malware analysis that I still need to sort of finish up and post up for everybody a full walkthrough on. But I just threw that together and slapped it on here. I don't have anything finished in this particular site, but in the case of like this no code solution, we can take it to that next step. So this is where I was going to go next week. But sites.google.com will get you to a page similar to this. And I was going to share my portfolio with everybody next week on the call if anybody can join in or wants to join in. But I was going to basically say here, like, copy and paste mine. You can change the colors, like you can change the theme over here. Simple. You can change the colors, just one click and it's done. If your purple's your thing, do that. If you want to choose a different theme, go ahead. Images, it's just a matter of click, replace images, upload. Grab this one here, hit upload, done. I'll just undo it for now. But
this is more user friendly, because if you're used to Google Docs, it's like point and click.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
That's what I mean
Yes.
when I say GitHub is harder. This is a little bit, and I didn't realize that Google Sites has gotten a lot better. Their templates are a little bit better than from like a while ago.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
nicer than what I remember I set up in, I don't know, high school.
Yeah, no, it's improved a lot. So where I was sort of going with that is, we've got GitHub sort of on one extreme, very basic, very limited. You're very tied to what GitHub wants to show you with their structure. You've got something completely on the other end that's like wide open, however you want to build it, but you're going to have to learn how to do that, or you hire somebody to do that. Kat, I'm not sure if you're open for clients. I know I am occasionally, but you know, we can sell our services to our students here. Or you've got this solution in the middle, which is no code or low code solutions, where it's copy paste, click stuff together. Here's the different pages in my thing that I threw together, blogs. You know, cybersecurity awareness month is coming up. So again, I just had ChatGPT throw together some articles for filler here. Um, you know, my projects, you know, here's a page on my home lab, and it's as simple as, you know, like these text blocks. You know, if I want to add um, a text box, I click, it's there. If I don't like it there, I don't want it there, I just move it. You know, here is my text box. If I want to do a content block, you know, copy or just drag it into position and it's done. Colorize the background. You're still limited. Don't get me wrong, you've got limits, and they have to have those limits, you know, just to make it easy for their engine to do its thing. But it's click and drag and drop and stuff like that. Lots of different options. You can embed YouTube videos, a calendar. I don't necessarily recommend these embedded Google options. They can make a bit of a mess. If we look at it from a mobile perspective, oops,
This
home.
is so good though. For just starting out though, you save a lot of money on hosting and all that other stuff that you have to.
Exactly. Might remember that there was a counter on that one page that you saw. If we switch to mobile view here, it's kind of broken. This is like an embedded feature, a little bit more advanced, but some stuff like that doesn't work. If we see it on full screen, there it is. But you know, it's a good middle road. It gets you started with something more professional than GitHub. But I'm not saying don't do anything on GitHub. There's a benefit to having stuff there too, especially because so many companies are involved with GitHub, whether it's collaborating on documents and documentation, or if you're interested in code at some point. You know, obviously, GitHub is very code centric there. So there's pros and cons to each of these. This is a nice little middle ground. It's like I say, a couple hours maybe. I probably spent more time fighting with ChatGPT just to give me some relatively decent images with as few spelling mistakes as possible than really putting anything else together in here. But you know, I've highlighted some projects. You know, like you can see these right out of our course, Szechuan sauce, and I guess that was it. But you know, my warm cookie malware analysis. You know, I've got a spot here for blog posts. If I run out of space here, it clicks through to more of them, my projects. And I was going to share this whole template with everybody so they can get started on that. But then getting into when we're talking at the start with .coms, it's super simple. Custom domains. So I just went into settings, down to custom domains. I've just jumped off of my .ca here and put in cyber. You might have seen it come up as something different at the start there, but if I go cyber.erniejohnson.ca, it'll pull that page up. And it's there. I've got another domain link to it as well, blueteamportfolio.com. So I was going to suggest, again, this was kind of next week stuff for anybody interested. Blue Team Portfolio is a .com that I own. If anybody wants a cat.blueteamportfolio.com or a get you or whatever you want to call it, I can set these up, no charge at all.
That would be so awesome.
You're not gonna get an email out of it. Don't get me wrong there, because
No.
the email has a cost to it. But if anybody wants one just to get started with a custom domain, otherwise it's a little bit more. I'm not even sure what it is. You'll get a longer.
There's like a range, right, of prices.
Yeah,
It's
like
a
I have a question here, Ernie.
yep.
Sorry. So here when you were saying about the domain, so just to understand it, so like one buying, so like if you go with Google Sites, you don't need to buy one. So
Correct.
that thing was not a bit clear, you know. So they give you one domain.
I forget what
Yeah,
you
so
get.
our URL would be like googlesites.com.ernie whatever, or sorry, Google Sites
Right.
Yeah, like if I just create this
Okay.
here, will it let me publish?
And what you want to do, Vipul, is eventually, like Ernie's saying, he owns that domain, so he could give you like an extension just for you to use for a while. But what you should want to do is go pick your own domain and have
Yes.
your own space so you can use it. But when you buy the domain, you're not buying hosting space. So the hosting space is where is your site going to sit? All those pages and
Okay.
all that stuff that you make, you need to go rent a space on somebody's server, like with a hosting company, and then you get so many gigabytes,
Okay.
whatever. Right. And then, but the,
Okay.
Yep.
but the domain name is separate. You'd have to go buy a domain name and then have that company redirect it to wherever your hosting company is. Sometimes it's the same company. Like you could buy
Yep.
hosting services with
Okay.
your domain name. But yeah, so Ernie would have like a site, an extension like a .com, the blue team, and then he could add your name in the front of it. So it's a little bit more customizable and then it's
Right.
professional.
Okay.
Like you're not using like
So,
Google Sites.vipul.com or whatever,
Yeah, like,
and it's a little bit easier to
mm,
find.
I'm not
So
sure if
what about
trying to understand here, see, Kat. So Google site would be a hosting space, and the domain which I buy would be like a domain to buy. I mean, did I get you correctly? Like Google site is like a hosting space.
Yes, and they give
Okay.
you a domain.
Okay.
They're going to
yeah,
give you a domain if you want to look at it, but
yeah,
it's
but
not a
here,
pretty domain.
yeah, here it is here. So I just plugged this one
Okay.
in. I just created a new site. So what you would get from Google is https colon slash slash
Oh, got it.
sites.google.com
Okay.
slash view and then slash whatever you tell it that you want to call it. So in my case, I said Ernie Johnson dash cyber. So that's what you get is this
Okay.
whole thing right here.
Got it.
would
Okay.
you
Yeah.
like use Google Sites to build out the website and then like go to, I don't know, GoDaddy or whoever to buy that domain?
Yeah, you can do it either way. Like if you went into settings, custom domains, you can start the setup. Um, Enter a custom domain. It might let us go and buy it from here, maybe not. No, verify
Yeah,
ownership. So we'd have,
Google's expensive too. Like you can actually buy your own email from Google. I think it's like $50 a year. But the secret is if you go with a hosting company and you buy a domain with them, you usually get like so many email addresses for free with that domain. So like say for example, you go with a company like domain.com. It might be 14.99 a year to buy your domain name and then they may say, "Hey, we'll give you X amount of space for a year." And then also you get one email. So if you buy the domain g2.com, you would get like one email with that you could name whatever you want, like contact@g2.com. And if you need more, like if you're an organization that needs more, then you would just select. They have like so many different packages that you buy with domain companies for hosting and whatever that you would just pick what you need customized to whatever you're going to use it for. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
It's a lot of information. So
Yeah.
I know that we don't have
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
time, but I promise you, if you guys need any advice, like I'm here, I will, you don't need to pay me. I will tell you, we can just have a Sunday chat like this and I can just show you how to build your website or at least give you the architecture, like how you want to, like what do you want to put on it?
Yeah.
What are the standards for like naming things? But it's out there too. It's not, um, building websites and that kind of thing's been around forever. So, or
Mhm.
almost, but so there's
yep.
standards and things that you do, like what do you name about profile, or portfolio or, what the standard naming conventions are and all that stuff. So if you guys do want to do that, I can even help you, Ernie, if you want to do it. I can write you stuff or whatever if you want to do something together or if you,
Yeah,
because it's important to know, I think, and it is really going to become a standard. I've been waiting for this because for years I've been saying like you're gonna have to use your name as like your resume, but that's the way it's going, and
yeah,
that's also now a way to verify who you are. And you don't want somebody else registering your name. Like
Yeah,
really quickly, I'll
you're
just tell
right.
you when Arnold Schwarzenegger first bought his domain name, he went and bought like 30 versions of his name because he didn't want anybody owning, I mean, that's extreme, right? But then again, that's his brand. So any misspellings, any nicknames, he went and bought all of that. So that's just an idea of what you can do. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to hop off right now. I've got some people waiting for me, but this was really,
no
really
worries.
nice and helpful. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
enjoy your Sunday, Gitu.
and if
Thank
you can
you.
join next weekend, we'll touch base a little bit more on those .coms. So,
Yeah, I'll be there.
okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Gitu.
So, bye, Gitu. So, Ernie, see here I do have a question for you again. So, when you said that the blueteam.com, it's your domain. So, like you bought it and then you are handling it. So, like, did I get you correct? I mean, it's like the blueteamportfolio.com. So, like you went and bought it like a usual buyer. So like you went to a domain, like to
Yeah.
the company which sells the domain, and you bought it. Did
Yeah.
I get you?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
how things work,
exactly.
right?
So yeah, I went to
Yeah.
GoDaddy. I typed the
Okay.
domain you want. So I did what was it called? Blueteamportfolio.com. Hit search. Now it's going to say it's not available. Um, they're going to try and, if you paid them $120, they're going to reach out to me. And say, hey, somebody's interested in blueteamportfolio.com. Do you want to sell it? But they're going to charge you $120 to touch base with me just to see if I want to sell it, and I might say no, or I might say yes, and then we might say, okay, well, I'll sell it to you for $5,000 or something like that. But either way, you'd be out that $120. So don't do something like this and pay a broker fee. Look for stuff that's available. So
CA is available. That's what it shows. So like going for a CA would makes more sense. Okay.
yeah, like
Yes,
you could
yeah, and you're in
go,
Canada. That's great.
yeah, like if you just put your name in here
Yeah. Okay.
and searched, it's an exact match. So there's no brokerage going on to try and see if somebody will sell it to you. $1.99 for the first year with
You
a
need
2-year
to have
term,
it, Vipul.
and you grab
A
it.
dollar.
Sorry.
That is a deal. You don't need any other extension.
Before I buy them all up and sell them to you is all.
Yeah.
I'll sell them back to you for a couple $100, But
that's actually a good business.
well, it's
No, that is not a good business.
it's not as good anymore. I've done quite well with .com trading, but it's a lot harder to do nowadays. And like a $10 a year domain, like once the sort of the usual price is like $10 to $20 a year. I've had some really good returns. I wish my mutual funds and in stocks would do what I've done on .com trading,
That's hilarious.
but yeah.
I never even thought of that. I had a teacher at UBC when I was studying internet publishing there, and he snatched up sushi.com. And he owned that for a while, and then somebody came by and just paid him like 10 grand.
Yeah.
Somebody in Japan really wanted that domain name. And he was like, I really don't know if I want to give it up or not, but it ended up he sold it, and it was like he made a really nice, profit off of it. I'm sure he only bought it for like $20,
Yeah. No, I've had some really good ones. I won't get into the dollars, but you could turn around and buy a car for some that I've sold them for. So
That's great.
it's certainly not like the multi-million-dollar ones like some have sold for years ago, but like I say, I've done well with them. So nowadays though, it's a little harder, or it takes longer, or you have to be more active in the trading stage of it all. But yeah, there's still opportunity there. So.
I'm so sorry, you guys. I have to go. I'm going to start doing my reading.
Yep.
But thank you so much for doing this, because it really did help me. I learned a lot more about GitHub than I'm always learning. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's not an easy thing to try to master. So anyways, but you guys have a good Sunday. It was nice to meet you, Abdi. Hopefully you're going to be fine. I don't envy the spot where they're at. I'm glad that I'm on this end right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully you do okay. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow then, or later.
All right.
Thanks, Irene.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, bye,
Right.
Kat.
Bye, thank you.
So yeah, but anyway, that's kind of where I
Okay,
wanted to wrap it
okay.
up. We got a little bit further ahead than where I wanted to go. I wanted to sort of largely stick with GitHub, but at the same time, just show where we can go next time, and hopefully next week, as long as my timing all aligns, and as long as we're, as long as our group's not swamped with the finals project, I did want to touch base on sort of this intermediate step from a GitHub portfolio to the extreme to just something simple that we can all build and showcase what we're learning, different projects that we do want to tackle, and then, like I say, that builds that credibility factor, shows what we learn, builds credibility through that, shows this capacity level here. How do we manage the projects that we've got going on? Consistency, whether we're doing some writing, and showcasing our technical skills. So I think that kind of brings that all together, puts it in a nice little neat wrapper that we can use, and yeah, makes us all stand out.
Makes sense, Remy. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for showing it up. At least I feel a bit comfortable with GitHub. At
Yeah,
least at least edit a bit and do it, and sharing the info about the Google sites also. It gives a different idea that
yes.
if like if we don't want to make it from scratch, like customize the website. And also there was this one thing uh, called static website. So like how does that one come into picture? Like is it something like Google sites?
Sorry,
Or
which?
like the static website? That's what somebody was saying. Like I don't remember,
Oh, okay.
but they were saying that. Yeah,
Yeah,
what is
so
it? Yeah.
so what you see on this Google site here, even though it's got my domain
Yeah.
on it, this
Yeah.
is very much a static site. This is rendered off of the server.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you loaded mine up, my main one, a lot of like all
Yeah.
of the animation and stuff you see, that's rendered on the client side. It's all JavaScript handling stuff on the front, what's called the front end. I could generate code on the server itself that's very much a static site. Um, well, a good example, not really a good example, I guess. This little chat bot, this communicates back to the
Okay.
server. So the server, actually, no, it doesn't. This is all front end too. All of this code is in the front end. So what could happen though is something like this would end up dead if it was all just server side because it wouldn't be able to communicate.
Okay.
So
Oh,
a
okay.
static site is just simple. You can get into some complex stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. There, I had e-commerce stuff going on with server rendered sites back in the early days because we didn't have all this front end code that we could do all these tricks with. So if
Okay.
somebody wanted to do some shopping, they would go to the website. The server would build out from the database all of the products that are there, list them. The person would have to add them to their shopping cart. Then they would have to hit, like update or something like that. That would communicate back to the server. The server would then render their shopping cart as a new web page, and then that would come back. So it was a lot slower. You had more transactions between the server and the front end, um, if that kind of explains it. Whereas nowadays, a lot of this stuff can all happen right on this front end that you see here. So,
Got it, Ernie. Okay.
okay.
So, oh wow, that was a lot of information, and there's a lot of moving parts I see. Like, it's not that just you just go and you do it, but it's like you buy it, then you host it, and then you have to handle it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I do understand from your conversation, or like in one day in the class, you mentioned that you do host also, right? Like you said that you have
yes.
around 300 TB size or somewhere in Calgary. Is it right, Ernie? That's what you
Oh,
already shared.
okay. That's different. That's just a storage server that I've got going on, or like an
Oh,
actual server for backups and storage and stuff like that. So yeah,
oh, okay,
I
okay.
rent space on that. But at the same time, like I do have a hosting provider, like this website here, erniejohnson.ca, is hosted with another company. So I've had to buy the .com or the .ca in this case. Then I pay a monthly
Okay.
fee for the web server itself, because I don't want to have my public web server related to my home network. I could do that, but it's that little bit of security gap that I'm not sure I want to really cross.
Um,
So it's
oh,
just,
so here to understand, like to understand, rather hosting with somebody else, you can host your own website in your own space. Is that what you can do
oh
also,
yeah,
Ernie?
yeah, for sure. Let me
Oh, okay. Can try. Okay, there.
let
Oh,
me
that's
just
interesting.
see here if I got an example. Here we go.
Because I was always under this impression that that the person who sells you the website, yeah, just by paying a bit extra, I mean, they're gonna provide the extra information like emails and stuff. But now what I've understood is that domain is one thing and then hosting is separate. So I can buy from GoDaddy and then I can host it somewhere else also, right?
Yes, yeah. Or you
So
could
there are
host it at
different.
home. What you see right here is coming off of one of my servers sitting back in Calgary. It's got an IP address here. I don't have a .com or anything associated with it. I could make one associated with it, but I just opened up a couple of ports to basically show this, and it's also going through a VPN tunnel, so it's a little more
Okay.
secure. But I could certainly build this out and host this off of my system at home. The Raspberry Pi I showed you guys back on
Yes, yeah.
Home Lab stuff. I can put a website on
Yeah.
this, plug this into my router, and have this serve out an entire website if we wanted to from my home.
Um, and
Yeah.
See, that's a lot of moving pieces. This session was very informative with a lot of information. Wow.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot to it. Yeah. I could do this week after week if we wanted to, and I can show you how to build a web server and plug it into your router and have that running as your website. So there's lots of
And
things we can do. So like some of the group. Let me just see here if I can find it. Um,
but it again comes down to the basic that would would somebody be spending so much of time just for one website? Like of course there will be a lot of learning in it, but given the time spent, would it be? Yeah, it just comes back to that thing.
yeah.
And also, is there a difference? I know that CA means Canada and .com is the world, but does it really matter in terms of looking for a domain with .ca or .com,
Um, yes.
or it's just a personal choice? Oh, is it okay?
um, in a sense, I that's kind of a tricky question. It's a good question. It's kind of a yes or no. Like if you registered your name, let's say, if you had vipul.com
Yeah.
and you build your website out on there and you're at an event, let's say, and you're talking to people and you say, hey, go
Yeah.
to my website, vipul.com. Um,
Okay.
maybe they're not writing it down. Maybe you didn't hand it on a business card, and they go home and they, oh, what was that? What was that website again? Okay, that was Vipul. So we type in Vipul, and just because the way the internet's been since inception, everybody sort of assumes .com. So if they can't quite remember, they're going to say, okay, Vipul.com. That's just where everybody's sort of going to go. That's their muscle memory, their thought memory saying, okay, it's a website. It's just going to be a .com. Whereas in my case, um, on this one here, it's a .ca. So if I'm at an event and I'm talking to people, yeah, go to my website, erniejohnson.ca, but then they start to forget. And then, a few hours later, they sit down and, well, what's Ernie Johnson's website? And they type in .com. I have no idea where this is going to go. Okay, can't be reached. Um, they might say, okay, well, something's broken, or let's just forget it. They might do some searching and they might realize, oh, that was a .ca instead. But then you've got all these other ones. There's .biz, there's .gov. We
Yeah.
can't get anyway, but there's all kinds of new ones out there.
Yeah, .NET, see, .xyz.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, why would .xyz .store I mean, yeah, that's like
yeah. I don't even know what all exists anymore. I just try and stick with the .coms for the most part. Um, .com, or
Okay.
GU, net. Some of the more obscure ones, they're basically country domains. So
Yeah.
sometimes you might be able to get them. You might find there's one that's interesting and you want to grab it, but at the same time, you might lose it because the country that owns, and let's say a .nl, let's say you wanted
Yeah.
Vipol.nl, you really like NL, and it means something to
Yeah.
you, but the Netherlands owns it, and maybe they have rules that say, well, you have to be a company in Netherlands to own a .nl, so we're going to take that from you.
Okay.
You can't have that anymore.
Oh,
So now you've built up Vipol.nl,
yeah.
and all of a sudden now it's gone. So so
Wow.
you have to understand what you're getting into with some of these, especially if they're a part of a company. Like .2 is a popular one. Tonga basically has not really rights or regulations on it, but they might someday. So everybody that's using these .2 domains might say, "Oh, this is great. I really love these .2 domains." Like it might be Ernie.2 and then slash something like as a little shorter URL. But all of a sudden, Tonga might say, "No, we want this just for businesses that are in Tonga, and anybody that's not, those .2s are all gone." So so it's something you
Got
need
it.
to be
Yeah.
careful of. The safer ones, obviously, are something like .tech, .live. If they don't belong to a country, they're generally safe. So
General, okay. And is there a difference between buying from a GoDaddy or from a Namecheap, apart from a bit of price difference, but are they all the same,
um,
or do you know?
for the most part, they're all the same. You'll see some price differences. Some might offer
Oh,
a little bit different, like Kat was saying, they might have like an email service with them, or you might be able to host a website
oh,
with them
okay.
if you were building something out. There was one company, I'd have to look it up. It was in some cybersecurity related news recently. Um, they had a bunch of dot coms or whatever they were. They ended up selling to a different company, and when the ownership between the companies transferred, everybody that had these dot
Yeah.
coms, um, they kind of lost like their secure access to those dot coms.
Oh,
They still had access,
yeah.
but there was something, and I'd have to look up the article. There was maybe it was like two factor or something like that, but that had to get switched off because the new company bought from the old company like the business, and all of a sudden everybody that had a dot com was now vulnerable to having those dot coms stolen. So if you're going to buy one, buy
Okay.
from hopefully a bigger company that's been around and more reputable, sort of thing. So just in case something like that doesn't happen. So
Got it.
Hey,
Okay.
Ernie,
Oh,
sorry,
wow.
no
Yeah.
problem.
sorry to interrupt. I have to run, but I just wanted to ask. Mentioned that you wanted to help out with site Google Sites. If you instead of doing from scratch, I'll be able to help. Is that what you mentioned earlier?
Sorry, I kind of missed that.
The Google Sites, right?
Oh yes, yes.
How? Yeah. So are you trying to make some kind of a presentation regarding how we can do it? Because instead of doing from scratch, because you said it's a bit headache to do from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean it's not too bad right from the beginning. Here's just a brand new site that I had just started. You can plug in your title. Well, here we go, right here, blank site. Start a new site. Just start typing. Um, I was going to share with the group like next week on another presentation my whole portfolio here, so a person could copy and paste and then just tweak it how they want it, or go in
Oh,
and
perfect.
change. But that's sort of what I was going to do next week. But it's really not too bad. Pages, themes. It's relatively easy to get started. Um, but yeah, like I say, next
Is this
weekend I wanted to sort of present and say, here, copy my portfolio here if you want, and tweak it.
Oh, okay, great. Because I had a question regarding that, but thank you. So in this regards, though, can you use this link as part of your LinkedIn, like to someone to look at it and see your portfolio from there, or?
I don't right now, excuse me, but I'm thinking of doing that because I started building this one out. Um, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to just plug all this stuff in here from Lighthouse, and it's a relatively nice, quick way to throw blog posts in if you wanted to start writing stuff. Again, I just used ChatGPT to give me some filler information for this, but rewrite things or write things from scratch, document your learning, document some extra projects you might do, document the projects you're into with Lighthouse, and it's just a good way it's a good clean way, and it's simple. And then sure, send the link out, like put it on your LinkedIn. Here's my portfolio, because I don't expect everybody to go out and learn HTML and JavaScript and everything from scratch and put something fancy together, but just something nice and simple. Here's some work that I'm doing. Here's what I do at home on my home lab. Here's some training documents I wrote for a company, or whatever it is. Very simple and quick. If you've got a custom domain attached, that's great. In this case, cyber.erniejohnson.ca. The other one, like I said, I was going to do was ernie.blueteamportfolio.com. And next week, I was more or less going to say, like anybody that wants attached to this Blue Team portfolio, for no charge, I can give you like that front end, with whatever you want to call it. And it would point to your own Google site just as a way to get started. So.
Great. Thank you
So,
very much. That's good. Yeah, go ahead. Vibhu.
so Ernie, here the question would be like, because like you're saying that you are able to give that ernie.blueteamportfolio.com, right? So,
Yes.
so I'm just trying to understand how the things work around here. So, so like how can you give, because I mean, uh, like because the domain is bought,
Mm-hmm.
like you bought the domain, okay,
Yes.
and
Yep.
somebody else sold it to you, so you can still make into many small pieces and still share it with others. That's what I'm trying to
That.
understand,
Yeah.
like how
That's.
that part works out. Yeah.
Yeah. So the front part, I can have as many of those as I want,
Oh, okay.
and
And do you have to increase your space into the hosting thing to, like like if you're sharing with others, how that I mean how does the whole process work out? uh,
okay. So like, let's say we're using the Google site.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you
okay.
would create in here, and then you would come to this custom domains and start the setup. And instead of www, it would be like by pull, let's say, .blueteamportfolio.com. It's going to check and
Okay,
see
okay.
that Blue Team Portfolio is owned. It's been verified with Google. You would hit next and continue. Then you got to let me know that, hey, I've set a Google site up and I'd like to use my domain here, my Blue Team Portfolio, and attach it to your name. And then I tell it just to redirect anything that's coming in by pull.blueteam. I tell it to look at Google hosting services, and then Google says, "Yeah, I pulled up Blue Team Portfolio. This is your site," and you would go there. Does that
Okay,
does
so
that
I'm
help?
trying. Well, there are still more questions. So
Mm-hmm.
here, let's say that Ernie Johnson, that like your website is there, right? So like erniejohnson.ca. Okay, see
Yeah. Yeah.
erniejohnson.ca. Let's say that you started a company. Of course, you run a company, and then there are different departments. Let's say there is finance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so can you still create the same thing for erniejohnson.ca, like finance.erniejohnson.ca?
Yeah.
Does
Exactly.
that
Yep.
still work?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And
Got
so
it.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
I could have a totally different website for the finance team or technical support team or whatever. All based on that front end of the domain.
Got it, Andy. Oh wow, that I mean, these were like all these small questions,
Yeah. Yep.
which I always had a gap. Okay, now now thank you for answering it.
No problem.
Yeah.
So anything else from anybody? Or Amarjeet, I see you're here. I'm not sure when you joined us, but you've been quiet. Maybe I've put Amarjeet to sleep. Oh, there she goes.
Hi, Ernie.
Hey
Sorry, I joined late. I didn't get notification, and I forget
Oh.
like today you have session.
No worries.
So you have a recording, so I can start it?
Yeah, I do have it recording. I forgot to start right off. Forgot to start recording right at the start, so there'll be a couple minutes missed. But yeah, as soon as I have a look at this, and I'll repost it here, and you can have a watch through it.
Yeah, sure.
So
It will be really helpful because I missed the starting part.
Yeah.
So
the first part was a lot on GitHub, and so what I was showing is this portfolio template that I've created, that you can basically copy and paste that, and then tweak it to how you want to use it on GitHub. And then I went into explaining some of the complexities of GitHub, and it's nice, but at the same time you're very limited to how GitHub wants to show you information. So then that's when I started touching base near the end of this no code solution. So Google has a place where you can build web pages, and so I threw this together the other day in just a couple of hours. So it sort of showcases some of our projects that we've done, and I threw together a few quick blog posts just to show sort of that in between of GitHub, a fully customized website, and then something like this that anybody can really do and throw together just to build a custom portfolio of your learning in cybersecurity.
So what's the best way, like, to show the portfolio, like the website or the GitHub?
Do you know how to build a website?
No, but I will learn from Kate.
So if you don't know how to build a website, but you want to learn and you want to get really fancy, I mean, you can start from a blank page and you can learn all about the programming and all the code, and you can do something like this. I got animations going on. I got things that slide in. Contact form down below. I have it updated with different certifications that I do. Contact me form. I got this chat bot that I can, tell me about cybersecurity,
Okay.
and it'll go on. This is all custom programming. I got a blog in here, so you could click into each of the blogs. That's all totally custom, built from scratch. GitHub is very limited, very rigid with what you can do or can't do. And then you've got this other solution where you don't have to learn how to program. It's just drag and drop images, type text into blocks. Anything you've been doing in Google, like for your reports right now, really no different in this Google site builder. So this is a very nice, very easy way to do something. To me, there's quirks with it that would drive me up the wall for actually building sites, but for most things, it works quite well. So, I've got an about me page in here. I got detailed blog page, projects page. Each of these goes into different details, so it's very full featured and very, very simple to do. So.
Great.
So this is and I wanted to touch more on this one next weekend. So if this is something of interest, to definitely try and make next weekend, because I was also going to say I've got this domain called blueteamportfolio.com, and instead of having a longer, complicated Google Sites domain, I was going to offer up whatever you want to call it. You might want to say amarjeet.blueteamportfolio.com. In my case, I've got mine set up on there as Ernie dot, but I was going to give you guys basically a free name if you wanted it. So, but it has to run through Google Sites. So, but yeah, tune in next weekend too if you wanted to learn more about this. So, but a very, very simple way. This is not ideal, but for most people it works. So.
Okay. So recording I can find on your YouTube channel or
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube, and I'll post the link up in the on Discord here too for everybody.
okay. Thank you so much, Ernie.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate it.
Not a problem. All right. Anything else, or we good to wrap up for today? And we'll see what next weekend brings, depending on our course load for this finals project.
Any. For me, I am good with my questions. At least you showed me the pointers, what to look and when to look. So it was a very informative session. That's a lot for me. So
For
thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for taking out the time to show us and to offer us your support as well. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no
Eddie.
problem. Anytime. So, all right. So I'll sign out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to show us your knowledge that you have learned. I appreciate it, and we hope that it will be beneficial for all of us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no. Thanks for coming out. Feel free to get some of the other your classmates there to join in too if they got any questions. And I got some stuff on like some of the Wireshark stuff and programming. If anybody had issues with programming, I'm glad to help out whenever I can too. So, and then lots of good information just in our Discord for some of our frustrations and headaches and triumphs along the way too. So it's nice to have you join us. So
Okay, thank you. Have a good week.
right,
I
you
know
too.
the weekend's already over, but
Yes.
enjoy the rest of it.
Yes, you as well.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Enjoy the evening, Eddie. Yeah,
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.